So the next topic we need to talk about is how we embellish and articulate bagpipe music. So in case you're not familiar, bagpipes are unique among other woodwinds, not just great Highland bagpipes, but bagpipes broadly as a class of instrument, are unique because the piper has very little influence on the note or the tonal quality of the note, other than what we do with our fingers. We can't start and stop the sound with our tongue or our lips the way that other woodwind and brass instruments can. We just can't do that. We can do it on practice standard, but once we're actually on the instrument itself, once sound is being produced, sound is being produced. So grace notes are one of the two primary ways we do that. So the other primary way are strikes, where you're doing something that's below the melody note. We'll talk about strikes later on. Grace notes are something that we do that's above the melody note. There are two reasons that you're going to use a grace note. You can either separate two notes that are the same pitch, for example, two E's, and that kind of breaks up the sound in the same way that you might tongue a note on an oboe, for example. Or instead of separating two like notes, you can add emphasis to a note change. And that adds a little bit more oomph than just playing an F to an E that's plain. There are three primary grace notes that are going to take care of the lion's share of grace notes, and we're going to talk about the first one today. So G grace notes are called that because the note that you play from a pitch standpoint is high G. But because it's a grace note, we're just lifting the one finger. So it's going to be our top hand index finger, and it's just a very short pip. With grace notes being above the melody note, if our grace note is a high G, the sharpest note that we can play is an F. In other words, you can't decorate a high G with a high G. It's just going to be continuous high G. So the high G grace note scale is from low G up to F, with grace notes marking exactly the note transition. And what I mean by that is we don't want to interrupt two notes that are the same pitch. We want to emphasize the change in pitch. So most people find it relatively straightforward to break up notes with G grace notes. Because your finger work is doing very little from one side to the other than just interrupting it with a G grace note. So we're not going to cover that much, but this is going to serve as the crawl video for the G grace note scale. So if we're thinking about our notion of open up the destination and then clean up the finger work, which we talked about in our scale navigation series, Bagpipe Basics episodes 1, 2, 3, I think. It's going to be very similar. It's just we're going to add one small piece of that. So when we open the destination, we are also going to open the grace note. And then when we clean up the finger work, we're going to close the grace note. And what this is going to do is make sure our grace note is right on top of that note transition. So the way that'll look, for example, from low G to low A, you're going to open the grace note and low A at the same time, and then you'll just close the grace note on its own. Again, you're going to open the grace note and the low A at the same time, and then you'll close the grace note. From low A to B, it's exactly the same idea. You're going to open the grace note at the same time, close the grace note to complete the transition to B. B to C is where it starts to get a little bit interesting, because remember, we have our pinky that we have to worry about. We want to play nice, cleanly fingered C. So B to C, you're going to open the grace note, and then you'll close the stuff you're closing at the same time. So pinky, and then top end pointer finger. So again, B to C can get a little funny. B, you open the grace note to play a C, your pinky and your grace note will close together. C to D is pretty easy because you have that pinky that's anchoring you. So open the grace note, close the grace note, and suddenly you're on D. D to E is probably the most difficult, but it's going to follow the same logical pattern. It's just we have more stuff to worry about. So you're going to open the grace note and open E, and then you're going to close the grace note and clean up your bottom hand at roughly the same time. So D, you open the grace note, get ready for E, which involves lifting your ring finger, and then you're going to close the grace note and your bottom hand together. The last of these note transitions that could be a little bit funny are E to F. And it's funny purely just because everything is right next to each other. So it's going to feel funny, but it's the exact same steps as what we've been talking about. You're going to open the grace note, and you can't really open F, as you see, because other than lifting those two fingers, you can't get ready for F. But all you're going to then do is close the grace note, and you're ready playing F. So from E to F, you're just going to lift both fingers. You're probably going to want to show some preference to open your pointer finger first, just to make sure it's a nice clean grace note. You're not going to get kind of a rolling sound, but you open both of them at the same time, then you'll close the grace note. So the G grace note scale from bottom to top is going to look like this. From top to bottom, it is the same process, just in reverse. So from F to E, you'll open the grace note, you'll get ready to play E, but you do want to make sure you're not getting a crossing noise on accident, but you'll open the grace note, you get ready to play E, and then close the grace note. E to D can be tricky because you have a hand-to-hand transition, but again, it's the same steps. You're going to open the grace note, you get your bottom hand out of the way, so you're opening the destination at the same time, and then you'll close your top hand. D to C is pretty straightforward. You're just going to open the grace note and then play C. C to B is straightforward. Just be mindful of your pinky. So open the grace note, get ready to play B, close the grace note. B to low A, again, everything's kind of out of the way naturally, so open the grace note, play low A, and then finally low A to low G, open the grace note, play low G. You may have noticed that I'm playing grace notes relatively quickly. It is important to note that we achieve quickness through speed. We don't achieve quickness through tension. We don't achieve quickness through like barely lifting our finger. We do want to lift our finger. You don't have to like reach for the stars or anything. We want to keep it close. We want to be kind of tidy and efficient, but it is important that your finger actually leaves the chanter a little bit. And again, I'm not accomplishing this through tension. Tension is the opposite of our goal here. We will develop speed over time as our muscles get used to this motion, but don't be tense. Settle and be patient with yourself. Push yourself a little bit, but be patient and just nice, clean, relaxed finger work.